How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Agave and Cactus Talk. Out here walking the goatees today, and I wanted to talk about a topic that I'm always talking with my clients about, and especially because the majority of them the past few years have been small farms, trying to get into dry farming, and many of the places where they're creating these farms are pretty remote, so they're not available to tap into water or energy grids. But today we're going to be talking about capturing rainwater and sunshine, right? So I'm going to be talking about a little bit about what I do here on the farm with my roofs, and also about how it can help a small farm be more profitable, adaptive, and resourceful, I guess. But to give you a little background here, I don't have a well. I don't have any city water connections that usually the cities would have, right? That have once you get hooked into the sewer and you get hooked into the water grid, many cities have water infrastructure, and the water for the city is about a mile and a half away from me. So it's not far, but it's also not very close at this moment. So the well in this area, a 3-inch 400-500 foot well could cost around anywhere from $35,000 to $60,000. But the city water connection can also cost anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, and that's usually on short distance runs where they're only really connecting maybe 100 feet to 200 feet. But in my case, where they have to extend the water line about a mile and a half before they reach me, it's a much more expensive job. So I remember when I investigated it, they were talking about that line to expand it to me, and then to make the main line go from the street to my property. That whole process would be over $200,000, right? So in my case, I'd much rather wait for bigger farms to develop, or bigger, properties developed around me, and they end up paying for it versus me. Because say my neighbor develops and they, form a warehouse or a giant farm, and they want to be on city water, they'll bring the water line and pay for it, and then it'll be in front of my lot, and all I have to pay is maybe $10,000-15,000 to extend that main line into my lot from the city, right? Which I likely will do in the future, just to have it as an extra resource. But here's the thing with water: your most expensive water is always going to be the city water, right? So water being bought from the city at higher tier rates, right? Versus agricultural water, for instance, surface water from rivers, lakes, the aqueducts, the Owens River Valley, or the Colorado River. Here in down LA, we're getting all our water, a lot of our water. That water is cheaper, but it's also around, at the moment, anywhere from 3 to 5,500 acre foot, right? So an acre foot of water is around 365,000 gallons. It's enough to submerge a acre of fields or crop in 1 foot of water. So that's that kind of measurement. So you can picture that, right? It's like flooding a whole field under 1 foot of water. And a lot of our crops, aren't being flooded with 1 foot of water, but they may receive 2-3 inches out the irrigation in 4-5 different times, and then that water is what or spread over even 12 irrigations or 20, whatever, but that 1 foot of water is being applied over that field, right? Like a lot of those crops that do that are, I give the example, a lot of the nuts, they may use 12 to 24 inches of water. A lot of the grapes use over 1 foot of water in many places, especially in the Central Valley or hot desert regions like here in the Antelope Valley. So well water, used to be very inexpensive. It used to be pretty chill, like in times of drought. The farmers look to groundwater and they're like, it's whatever, we'll get deliveries later on, we'll just use the groundwater now. But in 2012, 13, when they passed SGMA and started regulating groundwater, now groundwater is being charged, higher permit fees and well fees, and then now you have to get a study if you make a well on how your well is going to impact all the other wells within your watershed. You have to also pay for the liberty of just having the well. So before you could just drill the well and get a permit, and the state didn't charge you for having the well after that, right? So now you get charged a yearly fee for just having the well, regardless if you use it or not. And then they charge you per acre foot. So for every 365,000 gallons that you're removing from that aquifer underground, they will charge you a fixed rate. And I don't remember what that rate is, but last I remember it was pretty low compared to surface water still. I don't know how that's going to check out, because the whole point of SGMA is to bring these places into sustainability of their aquifers. So if they're still overdrawing their aquifers because the price is too low and people could just pay it and draw the water, then they're just going to destroy the aquifer. Like that's kind of a lot of the controversy that's happening right now, actually, in these areas where groundwater management districts are being sued by farmers over these charges and limits. And then, but I think they're going to lose that battle, because it's something, it's like a common good, like in what do you call it, like the forest or the or the ocean, right? It's like the aquifer is everybody's. So it's like if you're taking too much of a draw and destroy everybody's ability to put their straw in, then I think that's why SGMA is great. It's going to regulate that, and a lot of them are going to be brought into compliance, and groundwater is going to become very expensive very soon. I'm starting to see that in many areas, right? And in many areas, for instance, I know I'm getting kind of sidetracked here on well water, but look at the example up in Northern California where all these ranchers recently were complaining that this dam that they were taking out was going to now not replenish their aquifer because they weren't going to have access to the water. And that water, when they used it, would go back into the aquifer because it's so shallow, the soil to aquifer distance. And then now that dam got taken out, they have no water from surface water, and so they have no water that they can buy from the state or feds anymore, right? And their wells now are not able to draw water from the aquifer because the aquifer is not being replenished sufficiently, right? How it was prior to this artificial, you could say, replenishing by having that dam there and having this extra water for them to use and it going back into the underground, right? So the point is, even by taking out the dams, the groundwater is going to start to be diminished. So you might have to drill new, deeper wells, more expensive, and obviously it's going to be a much harder time. A lot of these people's wells are 100 years plus old, many of those water rights, and then when you apply for a new well, it's going to be a shit show, because in many of these areas, they, to be honest with you, don't want you to be there anymore. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. Getting back to the point here. Okay, so surface water, city water, groundwater, getting real expensive here at a farm in California, because before the water was the cheapest part. We had the world's largest artificial river through the California aqueduct. We had all this water coming from Northern California down into the Central Valley in the South California, and there, it looked all good for like a couple years, but then they stopped, maintaining these systems, and now the water deliveries are, anywhere from 20 to 50% depending where you're at, right? So the surface water, even it's getting very expensive, but in many areas, not even there anymore. Like they don't have the availability. So anyways, why does this all matter to capturing rainwater and capturing sunshine? Well, when you develop let's talk about a roof, right? I build a chicken coop and I build it out of metal. Like I'm talking about my farm here now. So I built a chicken coop, and then that chicken coop has a metal roof that has a gutter, right? And I just worked on this one today. And that guy is going to capture, that roof around, let's say around anywhere from 8 to 15,000 gallons a year, right? Now my farm last year used 60,000 gallons, and most of that came from captured rainwater off my roofs. And this year I've basically doubled the roof capacity, and now I need to add gutters and to all of them, which I'm slowly doing, and then I'll be able to catch, hopefully, double what I did last year, which was around, I think, don't remember specifically at the moment, I think it was like, maybe anywhere from like 40 to 50,000 gallons of rainwater. So the majority of my farm was running off rainwater, with some water trucks coming in to deliver water to the goats in the summer. And all of this rainwater covers my homesteading, my showering, my cooking. It covers the plants, it covers the goats, right? And all of this water, once I set up the system, it's going to be basically essentially free. And I give this economics example, right? So say I spend on a little gutter, downspout, and a rain barrel about, let's say with the parts, let's say I spend $150 to $200 in material, right? Maybe you get a little cheaper, wherever you're at, depending how much the vinyl is or the aluminum or whatever. But in my case, right? So well, I'll tell you right now. So $150 to $200 to gutter up that roof, right? And then the roof, the metal roof, was comparable in cost to, shingles, or comparable in cost to other materials, and it was a quicker installation. So that roof cost me about, I think, $1,000 in metal panels, and so we're now at $1,000 in metal panels. About a day of labor of mine to install the panels and the gutters, and $200 a gutter. So we were, say, $1,200, right? Well, those, put this in perspective. The average Californian uses around 31,000 gallons a year, right? And then maybe paying an average water bill of, say, $100, right? So if we put that into perspective, that means, every roof of mine, every month, may be capturing anywhere from $25 to $50 of rainwater. Obviously not every month it rains, but when you average it out, right? And so that makes it to where off a few of my roofs, I could capture most of my water usage or all of my water usage in my farms, right? Now that means that rainwater capture system that cost me $1,200 and a day of labor, within 1 year, has paid for itself. 1 to 2 years, and it will last the vinyl maybe, let's say give it 10, 15 years in the desert. It may last 20 to 25 elsewhere, but here it's, the sun bakes it. So I'm gonna get that payment back 10 times, 15 times over, right? And then every roof is like that. Every roof I spent, say, $1,000 to $2,000 to make it, get the gutters in and the labors. And then that is every year providing a payback. And then after the second year, all of those roofs pay back themselves in water costs. And then they also, last for a really long time. Like that metal will probably be there and I'll be dead. But the gutters, I'm going to, next time I replace them, put aluminum. And here's the other thing. Those gutters that I was telling you, okay, $200 to put a little gutter system. Most of those gutters that I got on my farm are all recycled from a construction project I did at my brother's, where they put aluminum gutters, and then I brought the vinyl gutters here to the farm. So I'm able to get them for free, basically, and not even spend any money to set up my rain capture system. And in many cases, you might be able to find old metal panels for cheaper, used metal panels for cheaper, maybe people giving them away, and you just store them on a place on your farm until you get enough to where you could do your roof, right? Also, why am I choosing metal over asphalt shingles? I only have one roof with asphalt shingles, and the reason I did that was because that's what I was experienced with at the time. And nice roof or whatever, it's probably going to last a long time, but I don't like the little shingle particles coming in my rainwater. That rainwater I only use for plants. Can't utilize it to shower, filter to drink or none of that, because it just has too much fine particulates. Whereas the metal, that stuff is very clean because it glares. A lot of the birds don't like to be on top of it because it's hot also. And then, they're not pooping all over your roof like the asphalt is sometimes. The birds love to chill up there. It doesn't get, I guess, as hot as the metal or reflect as much. And then, you got bird poop in your rainwater now. So, obviously, at the bottom of the downspout, I have, different filters from gravel to fine particulate matter filters, so that by the time it gets into that tote or rain barrel, it's a lot cleaner, and then it's a lot easier to filter for my usage, or I don't filter it for the goats past that stage, or the plants because it's crystal clear. But, different filters for different uses, right? Anyways, what was I getting at? Well, so that's the metal roofs, right? Why I built them out of metal. You're going to get a lot cleaner rainwater, easier to filter, and then it lasts a lot longer than shingles. So I just, prefer it, and the installation is way easier in my opinion because you have 8-foot, 12-foot panels that are 3 foot wide. So you're installing boom, 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 like it's not like, oh, fuck, shingles, like your fucking roofer out here. Nah, I don't like that shit. And that shingle roof, once it goes to shit, I'm going to replace it with metal so I could get the rainwater a lot cleaner. But anyways, going back to this economics of the rainwater, most of these systems pay for themselves in less than, 2 years and go on for a decade or more. So they're going to have large paybacks, right? And once again, going back to, I'm not going to have a $50, $100 water bill for that usage, right? And that's if I was in the city, because I'm agricultural and I'll use a lot more water. On your water bill, how they say, oh, you're tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. A lot of the, bigger buildings, they're in those level 3 or the farms where they're paying, sometimes triple or quadruple what the tier 1 rate is for water, right? So that's where I say the city water can be really expensive. But here's the thing, even there's been times where I go on vacation and the fucking water company still charges me $50 and I use zero water, And it's like, so when you have city water and you're hooked up to the grid there, you pay regardless if you use it or not. Whereas the rainwater, it's just collecting, storing, and collecting money for me. It's like a giant bank. The more water I keep, it's the more money I'm storing, because I'm not going to have to waste that either paying the city, paying the state, the feds for surface water or groundwater, right? And I say, okay, after that second year, I'm looking at all this water as free water, quote unquote, right? Because it's just coming to me without a cost. I get to store it because all these systems I've built, and then it's get to be used to make me mad money with the plants and the animals. So that's fire. And the other thing I love about rainwater is this, that it makes you more independent as a farmer, right? Because look what happened in Altadena, right? Like a fire could happen or some emergency and all your water's cut off, right? Everybody is on the same grid. So a problem here hurts the whole grid, right? You can look at, let's try to give another example. Like Berryessa farmers, right? They're trying to cut 75% of their water. And, they're not going to have that water available anymore to farm. they're going to have to fucking farm cactus and agave or some shit, because most of those industries there are high water users and they're going to crash, right? But how does that relate to us here? When the water is controlled by the government through surface, groundwater, through the city water, where they could just raise your rates willy-nilly, right? I give the example of energy prices. Dude, I've cut my energy use every year by like almost 50%. You install new LED, new light fixtures, new machines that use less energy. The bill never in my life has gone down. So it's just like, the water bill is the same. And water and energy prices every year going the fuck up. And rainwater and solar is basically paying up front, saying, okay, I'm going to pay for this system, and then the rest of these 1 to 3 decades, I'm not going to fucking have a bill, right? So you have a fixed expense now instead of something that can go up willy-nilly. Like, look at all the fires that SoCal Edison has caused. Well, now they, right, put the bill on the taxpayers, right? Thank you, fucking insurance commissioner of California, son of a bitch. But the government allows these fucking companies to make all these billion-dollar mistakes and then make the fucking taxpayers pay for it. So then our bills go up, right? I don't think a tax rate or any taxpayer or water bill payer or energy payer or whatever of the state should be penalized and pay more in energy or water because a billion-dollar company doesn't want to cut, the pay of their executives or account for the lack of maintenance, right? Billions of dollars that SoCal Edison makes. They can't maintain one fucking power pole, right? They can't cut the brush around it. It's pretty funny to me because I remember when that whole fire happened, people are like, oh, it's not as just easy like that. Yes, it is, man. I fucking do landscaping and I consult for farms, and you know what? All the time we are, in these really rich areas, and SoCal Edison comes and says, hey, man, you got to clean all this fucking shit up. And we do. And then nothing happens in those areas. But in Altadena, they just didn't give a fuck about us. So the point is, when you have your energy and water independent, you don't have to depend on the government fucking raising your rates, making your water unavailable, Let's give some other examples here in California, right? Like Sigma cutting the water that is available to many of these farmers that are farming nuts and trees, right? Before, they could pump unlimited 3-foot acre, per 3 foot of water per acre if they fucking wanted. And now the groundwater districts are like, hey, you can only use 3 inches. Imagine the government comes in and says you can use 90% of your water. You have all the water down there, but you can't use it. Now, like I said, I think that's a good thing on one part, that, for instance, the government is going to regulate this so that everybody has access to the aquifer for generations, right? They're trying to bring it into sustainability. But as you probably know, listening to the podcast, I'm not a big fan of the government. Government sucks nuts. And the government having the ability to come in over 1 year to another and say, I'm going to cut 90% of your water, figure it the fuck out, that's not good. We've talked about it on the podcast, that the government has that much power. Because I've had clients growing, my job as a consultant is not to decide the ethicalness of the farm. But this is what I'll tell you. I have nut farmers that I consult for, and 1 year to another, making mad money, their property, their home, their farm worth mad money. Year to another, in 2013, then they get so burnt, right, off of Sigma, right? And now, say 10 years pass by and nobody was thinking about it, right? They completely forgot about this shit happening. Now the legislation caught up. They finally figured out how to regulate them, what they were going to do, who was going to be the boards, right? And then my client, which was a pistachio farmer, and I had another one that was an almond farmer, they had I don't want to say the exact numbers on their property, but it was pretty bad. So let's just say, for the example, they had a $10 million home and farm, a couple thousand acres. Government cuts their water 90% through the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and says your basin is now being drawn into compliance. You only have this much irrigation water. What happens? the value of their land went down so much that the loan that they had to borrow against that land and farm to farm now got so burnt, right? Now the bank is calling in their loan, and their property is worth shit, like, a couple $1,000,000 less, because any new buyer knows I'm not going to have the water to farm what that guy did. That makes that property less valuable. People have been asking me recently a lot about Central Valley agricultural prices and why they're going down a lot. That has a lot to do with it, actually, because the groundwater isn't the same anymore for these farmers, which makes their properties a lot less valuable, because it's a lot less, crops that you could use on that land now, right? Which means your home on that land is worth less. And do you want to have the power in the government to be able to do that to your farm, right? So say you're highly dependent on groundwater, and then somebody comes in, the government tries to regulate you, and then now, one year to another, you got 90% less water, or 75% less water. It's going to change your whole fucking operation, right? So from the beginning, by capturing rainwater, what you're doing is having a much more, fixed cost, consistent, capture of rain. You build as you scale your roofs, like I'm doing. Like I grow the farm according to how much rain I'm getting, right? And then you're going to be much more water independent, right? Through this. And the same thing goes on, through the solar. Because it's like, okay, I also called the city and said, how much would it be to bring the power poles out here? They over here talking about $80,000 to just bring the power poles here, to charge me a bill every month that may be very expensive, right? Now, I spent a few grand on setting up solar panels and batteries, and I hooked all the shit up myself. And then this fucking solar system provides all the energy I have on my farm. My farm is 100% solar. Not only do I save myself on the energy bill, right? Like this solar battery system that I've had for now 2 years already paid for itself, right? And the energy that I was saving, because I used to go buy gas and run a diesel generator, right? And power all my tools and batteries and all the fixtures here at the farm that way, right? And a lot of farms, that's how they run, off diesel generators, because many of them are remote, or they're not wanting to be hooked up to the grid to every single lot they have, right? And so also a lot of fucking pollution, right? Because that generator is polluting into the air lots of fucking, carbon that I'm breathing, right? Good for the plants, bad for us. But, so you got lots of pollution, I was spending around $200 a month on gas, So whether I had the electric bill or I was paying for gas, I was going to have to spend a few $100s a month. That solar system, I don't pay anything a month now, right? And that solar system's paid off. And then, it's going to last the battery for 15 years and the panels for 30. So it's going to just every year be bringing me back that $200 a month times 12. Every year making me that cool little, $2,500. If energy prices go up, it'll be $3,000 plus, But every year is generating me that, right? So it's a great investment. And then, with the batteries, I could get through the cloudy days or whatever and have energy at night, all that stuff, right? And here's the other thing too, right? Like how I was just explaining, an emergency that the energy company does may raise your bill. They may raise your bill because now they're buying, their gas or energies from a different source, who knows what may happen globally in the energy that they're investing in. Oh my God, Sholo, get him, Sholo, get him. That's the craziest shit ever. A jackrabbit just popped out of a bush, and my boy Sholo went to go get him. Get him, Sholo, get him. Fucking jackrabbits, dude. I don't think he'll get her, though. He's young. If Ghana was here, though, whoo, would have got that jackrabbit. Ghana got them legs. She got them burners. Sholo's mom. Sholo, don't stray too far. Forgot what I was saying. Oh, well, yeah, you're just going to be, and now I'm paying a fixed rate on my energy at the beginning, and then the payback's around 2 years less, And then now I'm making, a little money on my energy instead of paying an energy bill every single month, right, for the next years or for the next decade or 2 or 3. And I think this is just like the rainwater thing, where it's like, okay, the government, for instance, like look at what happened at Texas when they had that huge winter storm, right? If you're on the grid, that sounds good. You're like, oh, I got consistent energy until the grid goes out, until these companies making billions of dollars don't maintain their grid and that shit goes out. And all these people were fucking freezing during one of the craziest winter storms in Texas, and they got no energy. All their fucking ability to withstand the storm, it goes down a lot when they have no electricity, because many of them can't use heaters, many of them can't cook, it's just burnt ass, scenario to be in that, right? Or it could be during like the blackouts of California during the 90s and early 2000s, right? When the energy grid was just not reliable, And then what if you're, I've talked about this with my friend that raises fish. He has backup generators, right? Because he doesn't depend on the government for energy, because he knows if this shit blacks out for a day or two, I lose all my fish, So he's got the ability to turn on his backup generators that are actually solar powered as well. But the point is, when you depend so much on the government to provide your energy, what happens if one day you don't have it? Can your farm survive that? A lot of people I know in ranching have all these freezers. They got huge rooms of freezers. They're not on solar power, they're on the grid. Okay, what happens if you have $250,000 worth of meat in freezers and there's a blackout for 2 days? There goes that meat. You know what I mean? Unless you got like fucking kilos of salt and or underground storages or some shit. The point is, the government in a day or two, that energy can go from being reliable to you don't got it no more. Or it could go over a year or two basis from affordable energy to now, it's not affordable. And I give that example, it's happened many places around the world, right? Where, say, a grid is taking their energy from, I don't know, we'll give an example of, say, solar, and, what happens is they get a fucking, a whole month of really cloudy stuff, and they're not buying solar, that grid company, and now they're buying natural gas to shoot up the demand, right? And those energy prices go up for those clients because that's how, the new energy may be more pricey, right? And obviously it doesn't happen as much in California, but if you're in somewhere else, it's definitely something to think about, because your rates may, artificially really quickly spike, double or triple, which I've seen in California several times. You know what I mean? I've seen my water or energy bill double or triple in a say time frame of a year and a half, and that's it can also happen when they're shifting to green. I'll give the example. Sometimes people want to have less pollution and shift to green energy, and then they're in a place where oil or, say, coal is so cheap, and then shifting to that clean energy makes their bill go up triple, right? Because it's way more expensive than the energy they have right there. I've seen that example, for instance, in areas that one could be like Canada, right? Like Alberta. It's like, some of these places, they have super cheap shale, gas, and then say a community wants to shift to solar to have less pollution, right? It's going to be way more expensive in many cases than just buying the energy from that grid, right? Where in my case, the grid is so expensive that the solar is way cheaper, right? So that's shit you got to think about, right? Like when you're starting or running a farm. But the real goal of this podcast, I think, is just to show you that, if you're trying to dry farm, you could run your whole operation off of rainwater and off of solar energy, right? And if you can do that, then you're going to be a much more independent and sustainable and a farmer that is adaptable, right? Because when all these issues occur with water or energy systems, you have your own grid. You get me? Like me, right? Like I'm maintaining my solar panels, cleaning them, right, all the time, and I'm maintaining my cables and checking on them, right? So I know that my grid's not going to go down so easily, right? Whereas, who knows the grid that you're drawing energy from, how reliable that shit is right now at the moment, right? But yeah, they can have real fast payback periods. This rainwater storage and capture and solar capture and storage, and you know, I think it also gives you an advantage in marketing, because you could say, hey, my farm is 100% solar powered. It's it's whatever percent, 90 or 80% run on rainwater. You know what I mean? Like that is something that the clientele of today, especially in California or the LA region or the Bay Area, is looking for, right? Like, I give you the example. It's like, I buy cigarettes from a company that their cigarettes are 100% wind powered. Dude, I gotta buy the cigarettes regardless, but as a fucking, I consider myself an environmentalist. I'm down with the whole fucking fact that, they're 100% wind power. So they're a little bit more expensive than the other ones. Like, than the other brand I like. They're about $2 more expensive, right? But I'd fucking rather support those guys because I like their cigarettes, and because they're 100% wind powered, I'm like, that's just dope, My point is, people may pay more for your products knowing they're coming and being created from these sustainable rain and energy sources, right? That, to me, is worth it in itself. If you could charge an extra 10% for your products based on this, fuck the payback period of the solar and the rainwater capture. You may make your money back in months, that would be cool, to see a study of that, actually. But anyways, I wanted to talk about how I got all this rainwater totes and barrels for cheap, right? So I partnered with a Korean restaurant that they would order by the soy sauce totes. And then I would just go pick them up when they were done with the soy sauce, because they have to dump them, right? I'd fucking pressure wash it all. It was all organic soy sauce anyways, but, you don't want all your water smelling like soy sauce, so I would get those for free. If you go to Tractor Supply and buy a brand new one of it, $300, right? Now, you could buy used ones for $50 to $100, depending on your location and what they've been used for. But I'm going to tell you this, it's a great way of capturing rainwater. But if you want to improve them a bit, they sell these like $30 covers that blacks them out. So they have a lot cooler temperatures for the water during the year. And then you're going to have a lot less algae build up at the surface, if there is any, like if it has any exposed holes or anything where sunlight could get in. And the other thing too is, like I said, if you could get them for free or used, then you're going to build your system up much quicker. Those totes that I'm talking about usually come in a 250 gallon or a 300 gallon. And usually every rainstorm, one of my rubes, may catch, let's say, a couple thousand gallons. So I usually only have 1 to 2 totes right next to it, and I'm pumping water into larger rain barrels that may be 3,000 to 5,000 gallons, that are the larger reservoirs that, I'd take all these different points that are capturing rainwater, and I'll move that water into this bigger reservoir, right? But those totes are a great way. And the reason I say that too is because a lot of the stores I've also seen sell those rain barrels for like $150, which is ridiculous. So it's like, if you want to save some money on your rainwater capture system, try to get recycled gutters, try to get recycled metal, try to get recycled totes, put in some work yourself. Kind of what I was talking about in the last podcast, that people always tell me starting a farm is so expensive. Well, look, you're going to put in the time or the money, but you're not going to escape putting in something. And a lot of the times, even if I got the money, I'll go try to find recycled shit, because I'm like, hey, I could use this money somewhere else and be more efficient and go further, right? So if you got time, use it. Don't sit at home. Go ask construction sites, ask restaurants, right? Like how I talk about, if you got animals, go to hospitals, schools, and restaurants to try to get free fruit and nuts and veggies, right? because they're throwing it away every day or every week. Find something that's a problem for somebody, like these recycled materials, and take it off their hands, right? You build your shit for free, and then you're cleaning up the world, because if you don't recycle a lot of this stuff, where do you think it's going to end up? The dump. So my solar system, I wanted to tell you too, it's like every roof could be double, right? So it's like I build the metal roof, and then I'll put, you know, what do you call it? Either steel. Hey, Cholo! Either steel or wood 2x4s, and create a frame for the solar to stand on top of, right? And then, like I give the example of one of my bigger roofs. It's all decked out in metal. It's got that wood frame, and then it's got, let's see, 8, 9, 10 solar panels on top, right? Now, all those cables go into a utility room. I built the utility room out of recycled shiplap and some recycled concrete that I found, and bought a little bit of new and just pieced it all together. Looks pretty decent, right? But also the same thing. Your utility room where you're going to put all your solar, you could build it out of recycled materials very easily. It's a little 8 foot tall, 4 foot wide, or by 4 foot long. And then that little room has some shelves. It stores all the batteries. It stores all the cables, all the battery generators, or all the battery chargers, sorry. And you know, right there I could charge all my stuff up, right? And have the batteries safe outside of, you know, the dirt or the water, whatever. But, you know, you're going to have to build a little utility room for that stuff too. And then you're going to have to find areas where you're going to want to have your rainwater storage pooled, right? So I have totes next to every field. 2 of them, ideally. One of them, like, collectively, they serve as a door. And I could just flip one back and get into the field very easily, right? They're like bootleg doors. But I always, you know, will fill one up and leave the other one where I could pull back, like I was just described, to get into the field. So I put the rainwater in these totes right next to the field, so that, say during the summer or something, I see the plants need water, I could hook up my water pump, which also the battery is running off of the solar, and pump the water, right? And that's kind of significant too, because I don't know if you know, but, you know, I think, you know, like a fifth of California's energy is usage is just in pumping water. Like, it's insane. So the pumping of water on my farm is all solar. And then, you know, I'll pump the rainwater from the place where it's captured by the roofs, you know, and then pump it all the way to the totes next to the fields. That way I can utilize that water. You know, I used to have drip lines through everything, but, you know, they're basically just for aesthetic now. You know, I didn't want to take them out because it would take too much time. So I've just been burying them under mulch, you know. But they're not active, and I don't use them anymore. If I do need to do any watering system, you know, I can hook up a giant sprinkler and just water the whole fucking field very quickly off a hose. Or I'll just do spot watering with a hose, because majority of the time I don't want to be overwatering my plants, and they only need a little bit more to get through their current spell of dry farming, right? So in the summer, that's usually when I'm watering a lot, because we're not getting rainwater, right? In the first summer month or two. And then in the later summer, we usually get monsoons, so I've stopped raining early in expectance of them, and if they don't come, I'll pick up a little watering again. But again, you know, a dry farm doesn't mean, okay, it means you don't use any surface groundwater or city water. But if you're capturing rainwater, right, for your dry farm, it doesn't mean that you have to only use what falls at that time. The rainwater can get you through the whole fucking year, right? So like in my case, we only get 3 inches of rain a year usually. And those, you know, say less than 10 days that it rains a year, sometimes a dozen, you know, days, I'm able to capture enough water for the maybe 300 more days, right? And ideally this year, we'll have enough captured water for the whole year and more. And every year, I just want to be building more and more and more storage. And why does the storage matter too, right? Because I give the other example here of what happened in Altadena. When all the water lines ran dry, it didn't matter that I had water pumps and water hoses like the firefighters. I couldn't get water out the hydrants anymore. And at that point, you might as well just leave, because you're not fighting a fire anymore. The fire is just going to engulf you. So that's what we did. But in other cases, you know, if you have rainwater stored and a fire comes or something, you could be your own firefighter. You hook up your fucking fire hoses that you use to transport that water, and you start battling that fire yourself because you have the ability to. You have all this water pooled up. And that's the other thing, too. To have these fire hoses work at high pressure and spray the water you need to fire a fire, you're not going to get that out your little fucking hose at the house, right? You need the hose to fill up giant reservoirs, and those reservoirs are what you use to fight, right? And that's why you need to have lots of rainwater stored, in my opinion, because in the time of an emergency, the amount of water you need in a short amount of time is not going to be available to even come out the fucking grid, even if you had the tap open the whole time, right? So you need to have, ideally, you know, as I would recommend, if you're in California, to have at least 50,000 gallons of stored water at any point if you're in a fire-prone region, because you're going to fucking need it. Let's put it that way, man, like, unfortunately. But yeah, you know, it could even help in wildfire maintenance, or the wildfire, what do you call it, combating one. Fucking, you know, even if you don't want to fight the fire, you can do what I have as one of my plans, which is flood the whole farm up, right? The best thing you could do is flood the whole farm and leave if it's a crazy fire, right? And if you're doing that with city water, you're going to come back to a bill of like fucking, you know, several $1,000s. Whereas if you do that with your rainwater, shit, you can always catch more, man, you know? But it will be free. You're not going to have a crazy fucking bill when you come back. Like, I remember reading about this one guy who left the sprinklers on and his property wasn't burned down, right, in this one area in NorCal. And then he got a crazy fucking bill. Like, so he saved his house, but he was just talking about how, like, they gave him, like, this huge bill of several thousands of dollars. And I was just like, they also said that, you know, in the future, because they needed the water to combat the fire, they weren't going to allow stuff like that to happen, that they were going to cut your water, right? So I've also seen, you know, all these sprinkler system stuff coming out in Palisades or Altadena that they're putting on top of homes and shit. That shit ain't going to fucking work in an emergency, man, because you're on the grid. Once again, about this whole independence shit, it's like, if you're on the grid, the moment they cut your fucking water, all those systems are worthless. Even, I give the example, in my Middletown house, they regulated us to put fire sprinklers, you know? I have those fire sprinklers hooked up to the city, sure, but I also have them hooked up to giant fucking reservoir of water I have, because I don't trust those fuckers to allow the water to keep flowing in a time of emergency, especially after Altadena, because it's already happened to me. So, you know, the first time it's like a surprise. They catch you the second time, you're the dumbass, you know. But yeah, you know, make your energy and water systems more independent. It'll make you more of a profitable farmer, because obviously I'm not spending, you know, several hundreds of dollars on water and energy every month. All of that's coming from the sky, and I'm using that and to irrigate and to power my farm, right? And as I scale, I'm going to be adding a lot more pens for animals, adding a lot more pens shade structures, you know, and, you know, pergolas and sheds and all these different buildings. And, you know, every single one of the roofs on my farm captures rainwater, right? You know, I got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 of those buildings are currently online to capture rainwater, right? And in every single new building I build, I make sure to make it to where I can easily add the metal roof and capture rainwater off it, right? And so you scale slowly, you know, maybe slowly is not the right word, but you scale with the resources that are available. You get me? So I'm scaling as I need more energy. I'll buy more panels, more battery, right? If I need more water, I'll put another roof, right? I'll put more gutters, put more storage. But the point is, I get to scale at my pace, right? It's not, oh, fuck, I just spent $100,000 on this well. I don't know if that water's going to be there for the next 10 years because everybody around me got a fucking well too, and they're probably drilling and drilling too. So the people that put these wells in for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, they're incentivized to utilize the water as quickly as possible because they don't know if that water is going to be, regulated in the future, if it's going to be there in the future, if that aquifer is going to collapse. Like, a lot of fucking unknowns there. You know what I mean? So a lot of these giant farms that are putting in these, humongous wells, they're not looking at it like, where's the water going to be 50 years from now? They're looking at it like, I need to farm now. I've got several thousand acres of nuts now, and I want to irrigate it now. And that's, there's a whole fuck thing happening here in California because of this. Because it's like, so say you got 100 acres, or say 1,000 acres of nuts, right? And you put an acre-foot of water on those in the your groundwater basin gets regulated, right? And this is probably a real-ass scenario that happened to somebody. So then your groundwater gets regulated. They say you can only use 3 inches of that aquifer now. You can't use 12 inches, right, of irrigation. And then what is happening is they're going out and buying another 3,000 fucking acres. Like imagine how I don't want to use that word. Imagine how idiotic this is. 1,000-acre farm buying 3,000 fucking acres just so that they could get the water rights from those farmers. So they put those farmers out of business, right? Say they were growing vegetables or whatever the fuck, right? They put them out of business. They buy their land, and then they fallow it. So then those 3,000 acres just become a fucking erosion, bullshit, where the wind is just taking all of this because they till it, they leave nothing there, just a fucking dust bowl, And then why do they do this? Because now those 3,000 acres that they bought will have an extra 9 inches of water allocated through the district. And now they could go take that 9 inches and put it back to the original 1,000 acres that only had an allocation of 3 inches. And now they're still irrigating 12 inches of fucking water on the 1,000 acres. And just expand this times tens of thousands of acres. That's what several almond farmers, nut farmers, and I don't know who the fuck are their consultants, but they need to be fired, like yesterday. Because if you need to buy another 3,000 acres just to secure water to continue your operation, you need to, dude, like legit, you should not be a farmer or a businessman. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. And then now 3,000, so to have 1,000 acres in production to unsustainably irrigate these nuts, they've taken out 3,000 acres of potential food crops. That's the system that's happening in California. And once again, going to the point that the government took over their water in a sense, even though it's justified here. And now these farmers are having to do drastic ass fucking things to secure water rights. Versus if they would have had, say a ginormous pen over several acres and have lots of animals, and they're using those animals to rotational graze lots of land that they have with all these trees, and they got silviculture, and they're fertilizing all the stuff, and they're using the maintenance of the animals to lower labor, right? And those sheds would be capturing enough water to irrigate a lot of these, trees potentially, right? And that's the thing. Maybe it wouldn't be enough rainwater to irrigate the trees. Well, if you can't grow the crop you have with just the irrigation or with the water that you're able to capture from the sky throughout the year, that crop doesn't fucking belong there, dude. That's the number one indication of you're fucking up, Because literally nature's trying to tell you, even with all of the water resources that I give you in this year, this crop still needs external resource. And most of the time that's going to come from aquifer or surface waters. And, many of the surface waters, for example, they were taken very fucked up, like Owens River Valley or the Colorado River, right? A lot of this water that these farmers are getting, they're bringing it from hundreds of miles away from other communities. And a lot of that water, you could just straight up say it was stolen for these large communities of farmers. Look at the state water bank. They need to make a fucking Diddy needs to make a movie on the whole Wonderful family and how they were able to acquire the state water bank, because that shit is crazy. But yeah, I mean, water resources aren't the most secure in California, but the point I was getting at there is that the surface waters, they're not always the most reliable, and they could be taken away at the, very quickly. Because what happens, I give the example, Colorado River Compact, right? California gets half the allocation of water. That's super unfair. It happened at the point in history because California was a very large state. Nobody gave a fuck about Arizona, Nevada, these places that also get water from the Colorado River, And now that those states have developed a lot, got lots of millions of people, they need the fucking water. And now they got the lawyers and the money and the power to fight for that water. California, there's no way in hell comes out from this next Colorado River agreement with the same allocation. They've already asked the Imperial Valley farmers to cut, I think, 1 or 2 million acre-feet of water from that Colorado River system as just like a first stage. Like, this is what we need to just continue. Like, the talks haven't even happened how they're going to split the water. They just said, we need y'all to stop using it so we have the water to allocate just what the fuck is on paper today. In California, my prediction will go from receiving, on paper 7.5 million acre-feet, probably to less or to half or a quarter of that. One, because the river is over allocated. It was based on a wet period, those allocations, and we haven't had anything close to the 100% level of Hoover Dam or any of these dams, right, on the Colorado River. So, there's not enough water even for current allocations, which means cuts are coming regardless, right? But California in specific, I think, will be the largest of the cuts because it's the one that is closest to the ocean. They can say, hey, you could do desal. We can't do that shit in Nevada and Arizona. And even now, that's some of the stuff they're looking at. Like, Arizona was thinking about building a fucking desal plant in Baja just so that California could get that water, and then the Colorado River water that was being sent to California, they would keep. They're literally like, dude, we'll build you a whole fucking plant so that you stop taking our water. The cuts are coming, man, regardless. And my point is, the surface water, yeah, it's not always reliable. Better to be on rainwater. Better to be on solar. Never know what the fuck these government entities or large corporations are cooking up. And small farms disappearing more and more every day. So you gotta be adaptable. And having solar and rainwater allows you to make your dry farm, your regular farm, adaptable, resourceful, more profitable, and to be honest with you, it's just a lot more sustainable, and you're going to be doing a lot better by the planet, right? If you capture the water and the energy where you use it, it's the most efficient, right? The water and power is coming right off my rooftop, right? I don't know if most people don't know this shit, but, they lose like 10-20% of energy in just transmission. And they lose like 10% to 20% of water sitting in the dams and moving along the aqueducts, right? Although now they're trying to put solar power all over the California aqueduct, which I completely support, to help with evaporation. And fuck it, it's already public land. Make that shit produce energy for us, right? But because I also know it's a payback, right? So I know the solar is going to pay for itself back, and the government, anything they want to do to help us taxpayers save money, that's like the only thing I'll approve, because it seems nowadays all they want to do is raise rates on us and fucking make us pay for more shit. That seems like a money saving solution, putting solar over the California aqueduct, which I don't know if you know, but is when it was built, the world's largest artificial river. Probably hold that distinction for several decades. I think China may hold that now with some of their irrigation projects from south to north and stuff. China's kind of the opposite. I think a lot of South China is where the water is, and North China is not. So they're building like how California did, bringing north to the south water, but in opposite, bringing the south to the north in China. So, but anyways, yeah. So, you lose a lot of water and power in just moving it, right? So imagine all the water and power that is moved throughout the California state. If people were just capturing water and energy off their rooftops on their farms, we wouldn't have to move as much of this shit, and you would save a lot of water and you'd save a lot of energy, right? And also think about water and energy footprint, right? It's like you're gonna have a lot smaller of a footprint if you're using the energy right where you capture it, or the water right where you capture it, right? So, the whole podcast, I think, today was just, almost at about an hour here. I don't want to make it super long. The main goal of this podcast was just to show you a little bit about how I capture rainwater and sunlight here, why I do it, why I think it's important for small farms, and, I think that, the biggest thing I take away from it is how adaptive and independent it makes you as a farmer. Because, studying agriculture, history a little bit, I just kept seeing that a lot of the reasons a lot of these farmers were going out of business time to time were energies based on water or were decisions based on water and energy that the government made or big corporations made. And, it really hurt them, and then their farms ended. So starting a farm and scaling a farm, I've always thought I have to hold the most keys I can, the most cards I can in my hand, right? Because the more that the government or large corporations hold in their hand, and these cards may hold power over your farm, the more your farm is not adaptive and can be taken out by any of these, shifts, right? So it's just you gotta be like I give the example. I know some farms that run just off of trucked water, right? And during the pandemic, a lot of those truckers stayed home. What happens if the government mandates that the people that bring you water can't even bring it to you? Like, a lot of these questions you have to think about when you run a farm. And I tell you what, being more energy and water independent is something that's going to take you further. That's the simplest thing there to tell you. But I hope you learned something today. And if you got any topics or questions on agave or cactus farming or just farming in general, let me know. Maybe we'll do a podcast on it. But this was a cool podcast I wanted to talk about, just because people always ask me, how do I go further in my farm, or how do I save more money? And this is the first two biggest things I think you can do. Be independent on your water and power, and try to use the lowest cost of it, and be intelligent with it. But if you need any agave or cactus plants, you already know, hit me up. And have a great rest of the day, y'all. Agave and Cactus Talk out. Peace.